So obviously Blackmagic Design is making shockwaves in the industry right now, and I've had a bit of time to sort of digest all the information, and I just, I really wanted to soak it all in and obviously give you guys my opinion on this, because I actually did a Pyxis 6K video last year when they actually released that. So I'm going to be doing a Pyxis 12K video now, but obviously I am actually tanned. I won my men's physique open category as well, obviously the novice and open, and that was amazing, but that's why I'm all tanned. I've got a few more competitions coming up, so you'll probably see my face will draw in a little bit and get a little bit lean, but we're talking about cameras today, so let's get into this Blackmagic Pyxis 12K. And also, I want you guys to leave your comments below what you think of this camera. It is very exciting. We've got so much information to be talking about in this video, so let's get in. So I'm going to be tackling this video from a perspective of having the FX6 and obviously having the PMW F5 camera. Now, I love my Sony cinema cameras. Like, I still haven't made a video about this 12-year-old beast, but this is the F5 Cine Ultra camera. Incredible camera. But the Blackmagic Pyxis 12K is a very similar size to my FX6 and this camera. And when it comes to, usability, it's got some insane specs. Now, obviously, right from the start, we're going to be talking about the sensor and the resolution. Now, it is a different sensor format. So it's not your regular Bayer sensor where essentially it's got your red, green, and blue pixels. And you can see in the pixel makeup, it's got red, green, blue, but there are more white pixels when it comes to this whole sensor array system. And it just works a little bit differently. Not 100% technical on this new pixel system. So, I mean, if you have a little bit more information, you could put it in the comments below and educate us all. Now, this does give you the ability to record up to 12K resolution, which is absolutely insane. But the one thing that I am really interested in is 72 frames per second with 8K open gate. Now, everyone was thinking, okay, well, the rolling shutter is probably going to be the same as the 12K, but somehow they've actually made it a lot faster. I don't know if it's due to a different processor, but it is a faster reading sensor. And you can even see here at 12K open gate, it has very similar readout to the Lumix S5 2X at 24 milliseconds, which is insane. But then obviously when the resolution scales down, that's when you get a faster readout. 8K open gate gives you 13.5 milliseconds. And in all honesty, when it comes to cameras, below 15 milliseconds is pretty good in almost any situation, and rolling shutter becomes almost non-existent. It's when you start getting up to, the 25s to 30 region is when you start to really notice the rolling shutter issues, because obviously it's almost twice as much as something as low as, 13 or 15 milliseconds. But you can see the results here, obviously courtesy of ymcinema.com. You can go check that one out. But this is incredible results from this sensor, and I'm just completely blown away. And look, I know there were a lot of people that actually had an issue with the Lumix S1R2 when it came to the sensor speed, because the readout was actually really slow. This is literally like almost 2.5 times faster than that sensor with the higher resolution, which just makes this thing kind of mind-blowing. And if you actually put it in the 2.4:1 ratio, you get about 112 frames per second, and you get a sensor readout the same speed as the Sony a7S III and FX3. It's about 8 milliseconds, which is absolutely insane. Now, what does this mean for FX6 users or other cinema camera users? Well, this creates something pretty interesting, mainly for the fact of the price. Like, it's $4,995 US. That is insanely cheap for what kind of specs you're actually getting out of this. And, due to the fact that Blackmagic have actually released autofocus and object tracking in their 6K Pro system as well. Now, with the L mount, they did a demonstration on the live that the object tracking actually works really well. He was pushing in and out, he was moving side to side, and then they actually showed the face tracking as well, which seemed to be working absolutely fantastic, and I'm very impressed. Obviously, they seem to be on the early stages, kind of like Lumix were, a couple of years ago, but they are in that first step, which is really incredible. And look, obviously this is pure speculation, but you would imagine that this is going to be coming through to the Pyxis 6K and Pyxis 12K in that L mount, and just give you autofocus through that cinema body, and it's going to send shockwaves through Nikon, Canon, and definitely Sony. But the price of $4,995 US is insane for what kind of specs you're actually getting out of this, and obviously what's included inside this camera. Now you can actually obviously build it out with the new top handle they've got the side handle as well. So they're really targeting that broadcast, and you could actually use this quite well with documentary filmmaking. It just seems like a perfect camera. There is one caveat though, that a lot of people were sort of suggesting that there might be ND filters, but it's the same size and form factor of the Pyxis 6K. There's no ND filters in this. So that is one massive thing that the FX6 and FX9s have over this camera, is the built-in variable ND filters that we have. That is absolutely game changing when it comes to documentary filmmaking. You have no idea of the flexibility that you have with that. And obviously Sony have the technology where they have auto NDs, so where it actually adjusts the ND for you, and you can keep your shutter speed and your frame rate consistent with that. This one, you're going to have to add variable NDs to the front of your lens on the matte box, or if you do have the PL mount, you can have that Mofage VND system inside that PL mount. So at the moment, it really depends on if you are perfectly fine with that using it on the lens, or internal NDs is definitely something that you have to have. Now we have to talk about as well is the optical low pass filter. So it does have an optical low pass filter, so you're not going to get any sort of moiraying. Look, to be honest, I don't really see much of that. It depends on the patterns you're filming on shirts and intricate patterns. I don't really film too much of that, so I don't notice too much of that. So it really does depend on what you actually film and what's on set, but obviously having it is beneficial than not having it. Now, one key feature that I absolutely love that they implemented with the Pyxis 6K is the USB-C port. Now, that can actually have the USB-C to obviously a monitor that's a USB-C connection as well. It's definitely the way of the future, and I cannot wait if Sony actually implement this in their cameras, because at the moment we have that terrible cord where you actually have to use the proprietary one for the Sony, and you can only use the Sony monitor there. Whereas this one, there could be third-party manufacturers that will produce monitors that will be able to connect directly through that USB-C, and obviously USB-C is worldwide now, so we really have to start adapting to this, and hopefully camera manufacturers will start implementing this inside their cameras. Now look, one thing I'm still kind of iffy about, but I haven't actually used the Pyxis 6K, is just that side screen. Like, I am a top handle user and a side handle user, and having to adjust everything on the side of the camera and looking at the side of the camera kind of is a little bit of annoying. I do love the FX6, how I actually have two monitors, so I can actually have the FX6 monitor that swivels, and then I've got my regular display monitor as well, my external monitor. But look, in saying that, if I did end up buying this Pyxis 12K, I have a top monitor anyway, so I'm going to be looking at that. It just means that if you are wanting a second screen, you have to look on the side. But hey, when it comes to tripod shots at face level, it's actually far beneficial to have it on the side, and then you've got that top monitor as well, so you can actually have two operators looking at it, or at least two different angles you're looking at it as well. So I mean, there are pros and cons to having it on the side, but hey, it really depends on your workflow and what you guys prefer anyway. Now, I think the one major thing that I think Blackmagic Design is going to be doing here is really pushing other manufacturers to be bringing their prices down, especially when it comes to the tariffs that US are actually starting to bring out. It's making cameras very expensive, or at least far more expensive than they actually are. When it comes to Australian prices, we're used to the cameras being quite expensive, in comparison to our cost of living. So tariffs don't really affect us too much, but they will be very equal to what the US will be sort of experiencing, and Canadians already have been experiencing that anyway. Now look, circling back to the start in terms of how that's going to affect me as an FX6 user, well, it kind of won't affect me too much, but the FX6 is starting to show its age, and it's going to get me really excited about the FX6 Mark II, because we're going to have XLR inputs on the body, will potentially have higher resolution, and hopefully the ability to film open gate. That's one thing that's plagued Sony users for so long. It's only, in the Venice cameras, which is absolutely annoying that we can't use open gate. We're only limited to 16:9 or 17:9, which, does suck when it comes to anamorphic lenses. The great thing about NAB this weekend is that Blazer actually announced their 1.33 times anamorphic lenses, which I'm super excited for because I've been using this one, the Viltrox Epic anamorphic lens. Like, this is one of my favorites, 1.33 times lens. Perfect on a 16:9 or 17:9 sensor because you get that cinematic ratio straight out of the box and don't have to crop anything off the sides. But hey, you got to take your hat off to Blackmagic for really pushing the limit and obviously bringing out a crazy affordable camera for exactly the specs you're getting. But hey, I got to be supporting my Aussie brothers as well because Blackmagic Design is an Australian company and I still haven't used a Blackmagic camera. So hopefully Blackmagic may reach out to me. Maybe I should reach out to them because, I'm an Aussie as well and I should be supporting the Aussie brothers. But well done, Blackmagic. You've done a great job and I cannot wait to see this get into filmmakers' hands, YouTubers' hands, and see what they think. Hopefully I can get it into my hands. This is one camera that's really excited me in terms of the readout and what kind of specs you're getting in this. So yeah, thanks for watching. Leave your comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts on this camera as well. But I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, let's get it.